We all resign on August 31st.
Yeah.
Have to.
All right. Good morning, everybody. This is the May 14th. Is that right? 13th. May 13th. Oh, unlucky 13th.
Yeah.
Meeting of the City of Lawrence Affordable Housing Advisory Board. We have, looks like almost a full house here. It's great to see everybody. I am going to take roll, establish a quorum. Then Leah is going to read kind of the rules of engagement for our meeting and online participants and public comment. And then we'll dive right into the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
So you're good. So I don't think we have any votes today. So, well, we probably have one. So I'm going to read the names in the same order when we vote, so you're prepared. Karen Willie?
I'm here.
Chris Berger?
Here.
Mark Bueller?
Here.
Stacy Schroeder?
Here.
Galal Abid?
Here.
Hai Sung Han? Brenda Wall?
Here.
Sarah Waters?
Here.
Nicholas Ward?
Here.
Phil Englehart?
Here.
Christina Gentry?
Here.
Thomas Howe?
Present.
Monty Sokup, present. So we have 12 members. So we definitely have a quorum. And we have a new format. If you're watching online, we have a new format. We're sitting at the table so we can really engage in our work. So Leah, do you want to read the rules of engagement and the public comment section?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Wow, my back isn't turned. That's amazing. I have a few, you can hear me, hooray!
Yeah.
I have a few housekeeping items for this hybrid meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. Unless you are participating during the meeting, please turn your video off. This allows the active meeting participants to be seen on screen. You will still be able to hear the meeting. When you are participating, please turn your video on. If you have any trouble, you can send me a chat. The city reserves the right to mute people or to turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. Now I'll make a few notes on public comment. When the chair calls for public comment, individuals attending in person should approach the podium to indicate they wish to speak. The podium can be raised and lowered, and we encourage you to use this feature to ensure your comments are heard. Individuals participating via Zoom should use the raise hand function to indicate they wish to speak. Please leave your virtual hand raised until you are called on. Individuals will be called on the order in which they appear on the meeting host screen. Please state your name before speaking. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Thank you, and now I'll turn the meeting back over to Mr. Sukup.
Okay, thank you, Leah. We are going to jump right into public comment. So I don't see anyone online. Anybody in the audience like to make public comment? Okay. All right.
All those in the audience.
Okay, so with that, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment.
Mr. Chair, there was a written public comment. I don't know if you want to review that or if you just want to note it, but it's linked there.
Yeah, why don't you pull it up? I missed that.
I don't think there was anything requiring action or asking us any questions within that. It was just Dicky.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So with that, I'm going to close public comment. And we would look at the minutes for the April 8th meeting. So I'd be looking for a motion to
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any comment on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the roll. Karen?
Approve.
Chris?
Approve.
Mark?
Approve.
Stacy?
Approve.
Galal?
Abstain.
Brenda?
Approve.
Sarah?
Approve.
Nicholas?
Approve.
Phil?
Approve.
Christina? Thomas?
Approve.
Monty, approve. Motion passes 11-4, one abstention. Okay, we're going to move on to our agenda items. And I regret that on the first item that Rebecca, who was going to make that presentation, is ill. So we are not going to have that presentation today. Just we'll have to try to reschedule it when she's able to do that. So that moves us on to item number 2, review and provide feedback on the 2025 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Notice of Funding Opportunity and applicable materials. So that was in the packet. I don't know, I'm assuming people reviewed that. Are there any comments on that? Any questions on the NOFO?
I have a quick question, Mr. Chair. So in terms of the timeline of when this board gets dissolved and reformed and the NOFO goes out, so the NOFO will go out as scheduled, presumably, and maybe this is a Leah question, and then the new board will be reviewing those applications. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. And if I could give a little more context, so if the AHAB wants to move forward with the original timeline, then we would review the NOFO and materials at this meeting, get all the feedback and any edits, and then bring that back in June for approval. And then the City Commission will approve it at their meeting in June, late June or July, and then the NOFO and materials can go out in July.
Do we have any direction from the city manager or the city commission as to whether they want us to move forward with this or they want us to hold off and let the next board deal with this?
The feedback that I've received is that the AHAB should move forward with the current timeline.
All right. Fair enough. So any questions, comments on the NOFO?
I guess I would ask the highlighted section about the infrastructure. I know it's a conversation that's been ongoing. Is that a separate set of money, or is that just an open application for infrastructure also?
So the reason that I highlighted that is because that's a decision that the AHAB needs to make, preferably at the meeting today, if possible. The rest of the items in the NOFO pretty much carry forward from previous NOFOs and the work that was done last year. But that's the discussion is, do we want to have 2 separate pots of money? Is it just additional questions about infrastructure in the current application? Or we could make a separate application for it, similarly to how currently there's like one application for development and rehab and then a separate application for services. We could make a 3rd application for infrastructure if the board wants to go that route, or we could just tack some additional questions onto the development and rehab application.
I have a question about timing. I mean, there's a lot of timing issues here, obviously. But does that infrastructure money absolutely need to be spent in 2025?
The AHAB could make a recommendation for it to be moved into another year. Originally, when that CIP item was approved, it was approved for half in 2024 and half 25, and the AHAB recommended that it all be moved into 2025, and that was approved. So if the AHAB wants to move it over to another year, that could be a recommendation to the commission.
And the background on it, this is specifically delineated for infrastructure? Or is it just funds available that we're allocating to infrastructure?
For affordable housing infrastructure, yeah. And it's very broad. The way that the CIP application was written was that it could be used for any type of infrastructure or development needs for affordable housing construction.
So I thought about this a little bit, and I kind of hate to see us do 2 pots of money because I think it's pretty restrictive one thought that I had was maybe to ask people that are making applications to say, I'm asking for X dollars for infrastructure improvements, so we have kind of it's not necessarily a separate pot of money or a separate application, but we understand that if we are allocating dollars to someone, that we know that it's going for a capital improvement based on the application. So it would just be, when they make their application, if I'm asking for $1 million, 300,000 of that is for sewer, street, whatever would fall under CIP. So just so we have an understanding that those dollars are going to actual CIP kinds of things.
So
That's my concern.
Do you just put an additional question into the?
I think so. I think we could.
Saying what percentage or what dollar amount of this will go toward
To
infrastructure?
Infrastructure and, yeah. That's what I think one way to handle it. I'm not saying it's not the only way, certainly.
I think that adding a whole other pot of money does not make sense. It makes sense to keep that in the first one.
And I like the percentage idea because some projects won't be able to go forward without having that money. So if it gets granted in one fund and denied in the other, well, it's a failed project.
Right. And that's a good reason not to have two separate pots.
Right.
Is there any possibility that, is that approach going to influence how you evaluate the scoring matrix? The fact that you have this delineation between, infrastructure and other, is that going to influence how somebody sitting down, going through the scoring matrix is going to operationalize it, if that question makes sense?
I suppose it could have some impact, although we always ask people in the application, if you're not fully funded, what does that mean to your project? So it gives us the ability to go, somebody might say, if I don't get this, I can't go forward, or my project's scalable, or whatever. We've always run into the problem of not fully funding some. So I don't know that to me, I don't know if it changes that.
Changes.
My perspective I don't know that asking that question changes how I would evaluate the project.
So so you're saying that it's consistent with the existing scoring matrix? You
I
don't foresee
think
any
so.
problems? Okay.
Nicholas Ward, tennis to homeowners. I was going to say, if having those in a single application from an applicant perspective sounds nice, because if we were, let's say we're applying for a project that normally we would just throw into the trust fund application. Now we would be essentially, if it was split applications, we'd be detracting that from one, asking for it from another pot. If one of those gets denied and one of those goes forward, I think that's been mentioned kind of, but that's really awkward. Then how do you proceed?
Right.
You deny some funds allocated and say, we're not going to be able to do it, but having that all in one application makes sense from an applicant, at least one applicant.
From one applicant.
Are we precluded from funding a project that has capital improvements as a component? In other words, we only have $500,000 of capital improvement money.
Mm-hmm.
And the askers want 700,000. And we like them all, we have the funds in the other pot, if you will, to fund it.
The other pot, I think the answer is the other pot is essentially unrestricted
Okay.
in how it's spent.
So
I think
we can
these,
still meet the need
yeah,
in
and
the other pot.
yes. And to a large extent, I think these capital dollars are relatively unrestricted, but I think from my perspective, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. If they're capital dollars, I feel like we ought to know they're going to capital things from a city standpoint.
Sure.
Just my internal gut tells me that.
I would agree with that.
You have jurisdiction.
Just in terms of not falling afoul of what the city needs those
Right.
dollars
We
to.
just make a recommendation.
Right.
Understand, yeah, recommendation.
That's not our real call.
I mean, I'd hate to see us, I think it'd be real problematic if we had capital dollars go to funding vouchers or something. I think that could be a real problematic,
I got you.
because it doesn't feel very capital at all to me.
Right.
So I just think we need that enough verification that we're comfortable that those dollars are going to the right kind of dollars in the right thing.
Galal Ubaid, Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority. Like the county does like a supplemental page to their application if you have like additional costs. So I like the idea of having it maybe somewhere on the application saying, hey, do you need any infrastructure support? Tell us a little bit more about it. How much do you need? The question about what happens if this is not fully funded, I think could be a good question for the application in general, but also the infrastructure part as well. So that way we can also have, or the next board can have an understanding of, if you don't fund the infrastructure, what does that do to the project versus if you don't fund the project fully, what does that do? Sometimes it's harder to find infrastructure support.
Right.
They're willing to take the cut from somewhere else rather than, so.
That's a good point, Galal. All right, any other? Okay.
This is Leah Roseland. Don't want to throw a wrench on things or make it unnecessarily complicated, but I do want to just mention that there is a developer who submitted an application a few years ago for trust funds, and we have been continuing to meet with him to try and figure out how trust funds or the city may be able to support that project. It's Frank Saab, the Going South project. And wondering how he might, like how that project might fit into the current application, and if the AHAB is even interested in supporting infrastructure work that's not connected to new development. I mean, it is, but Monty, maybe you would be better to
Yeah, well, I
explain
think, I think that's an interesting question. And I think from that standpoint, there has to be, in my opinion, there would have to be a connection to affordable housing somehow, whether that is providing lots at a discounted rate. Maybe that's guaranteeing a price cap on a set of houses. I mean, there's multiple ways, or allowing those houses to be sold into the trust somehow. There's got to be some connection for us. I mean, I can picture that in my mind, and the improvement that he's trying to get funded is not even in his subdivision. It's to get access to the land he wants to, which would be totally a city street.
I think of that as a TIF issue,
Could be a TIF issue.
as opposed to a discrete fund for specific infrastructure.
Could be, certainly.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he could make an application for that. Yeah, or you could do a lot assessment, which certainly doesn't help affordability, but it's another vehicle to do that. So anyway, I just think if we have those kind of things, we got to figure out, this group, really, it's our mission to make sure it's tied to affordable housing.
Yeah.
And if it's a good project compared to the other projects that we're looking at.
Mr. Chair, Thomas Howe, Lawrence Board of Realtors representative. I might suggest in the application, it says a pre-application interview with Leah might be of value. And I wonder if we could turn the tables in this specific case on that. In that, Sal really tried to do this, and we recognized and acknowledged that he, as a private developer, was trying to do this. And to me, it would make sense for us to have outreach to him to say, how can you envision this thing with affordable housing? And so
Right.
perhaps we could put it on your plate to call Frank and say, we're trying to figure out how we can make this work and contribute to our affordable housing, and perhaps have a discussion from there about how he would envision that.
Right.
And I think some of that has started, because I know he's met with
contemplates.
tenants.
He contemplates what we're talking about.
Right.
The last I heard,
Right.
so.
Yeah, and we did meet with him. He met with Jeff Crick and myself, and we talked about how he could add some affordability. And I know, as Monty mentioned, he's met with tenants to homeowners, and it sounds like that's the mechanism that he's planning on using, is donating lots and maybe doing turnkey for a certain number of units with tenants to homeowners. I guess I'm wondering how that would be explained in that. If you think that that sort of project is explainable in the current no-phone application. Is,
I think it is.
Okay.
I think it makes
Okay.
sense. And if he works with one of our not-for-profits to help guide him through that process, I mean, that would be helpful.
okay, yeah.
Be a co-applicant.
Yeah, exactly. They would be a
Puts them in the
co-applicant.
room, it makes us all understand what's up.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
No.
Mr.
That's
Chair,
helpful.
Yeah.
Karen Willie, County Commissioner, I think all of this kind of lends back to using the same application for, funds that are also asking for infrastructure, because I think we need all the other pieces that we're asking
Right.
for, how many, number of units, how many would be affordable, who's the target audience, recognizing that at an infrastructure level, not all of that will be known, but I think so long as we are sensitive to that and recognize that we're looking for, that it has to intersect with affordable housing.
Agreed.
I agree. I like that.
Okay. Thank you for that
All right.
feedback.
So
Have my back to the
my understanding is
audience.
that, I'm sorry, Thomas Howe, Board of Realtors representative. My understanding is that you want some action or approval on this today, Leah, is that correct?
This is Leah Roseland. We don't need formal action at this point, just any edits or changes that need to be made, and then the AHAB will formally approve in the June meeting, unless you're ready to approve it now.
But if there were none, we could approve it now.
Right, that's true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one of those changes might be that we were going to ask what percentage or what dollar value
Right.
will go towards
Yeah.
Yeah.
CIP funds.
I think we're going to have to see the edits.
Okay.
I'll probably have a meeting in June. It might be a very short meeting with 1 or 2 agenda items.
Well, and if we have this ready to go, we can, review it prior to.
Right. Right.
So, Mr. Chair, Karen Willie, County Commissioner, the scoring matrix, does anything need to change in that to reflect the possibility of applications for infrastructure? Or, really, many of these things would still be our high values.
Yeah.
We just may need to put eyes on that to be sure before we accept the NOFO.
Yeah. I'm trying to, yeah.
Get this out of the way.
My gut says we don't probably have to modify it simply because these are all things to do with affordability, regardless of how you get there. But I haven't, we need to lay eyes on it. I agree. We need to. Yeah, I think that's the one thing that ties it back to this is we're still going to evaluate the affordability component, and that's how it's going to get ranked, basically.
And because it is an optional component, I don't think it should have a ranking. 'Cause whether you ask for it or not
Right.
should not affect if you're gonna get it.
I mean, to be honest, we don't know how many
Especially
dollars
if it's
we've
two.
allocated that have gone to capital improvements. Potentially,
past.
in the past, we haven't asked the question. It just, I think this really is just a separate pot of money. We just need to assure ourselves that it's being used correctly.
And timely, filling or, and timely, in a timely fashion.
Timely manner, yeah.
I'm concerned about delays in generally speaking. I mean, I don't understand when you disperse funds and all that sort of thing, but as I walk around town and see the status of projects, I get concerned about the rate at which we are moving in the needle.
You stop at the planning department. I withdraw that comment.
I think you're on mic.
Okay, anything else on the, are we happy where we are on that? Little consensus, head nodding?
Karen Willie, County
Yeah,
Commissioner. I think probably adding one line in the board consideration of applications of if this is an application for infrastructure, we welcome those, but it will also meet many of these needs. Just so they can recognize, because if you had strictly an infrastructure project and you were looking through here and say, well, are they looking for this? But just some kind of indication that we do have dollars set aside for that.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, other than that, I think a lot of this fits just like it is.
Yeah. And certainly if you go home after this meeting and you look at this application and you have comments, you can send them to Leah and she can kind of figure out how, whether or not or how they get incorporated. And then we'll have a chance to review. Go ahead.
Sarah Waters, I had one other add, and maybe it's just a refining, I think, of wording on thinking of if you need the capital, the infrastructure money to get to the acreage, just clarifying that, and also that conceptualizing of what then you'd put in the affordable housing aspect of it. Because I think that's the piece that if I'm a developer and I'm trying to get to the acreage, I maybe haven't taken the step, and I know that's what we were talking about, but that needs to happen. And I know we were talking about that, but I think there's some refining of language throughout the document in terms of getting in a rough order of magnitude of what that development looks like that you're getting to and how you've started the partnering. And I think that could tie somehow into scoring, though. It's weird. This is going to be really weird of how to do this. So I may be totally off base and maybe missed a portion of conversation, but.
So my question is, does it tie to the acreage served or does it tie to the number of affordable housing units that get?
It's a great question. And
So I think our current thing would get you to the how many
Okay.
housing units. It doesn't get to this opens up 160 acres or this opens 3 acres. It doesn't get to that. Certainly, I hope if a developer has that kind of magnitude of thing, they would bring that up because those are very different.
Right.
Because ultimately, housing in of itself at the right price point impacts affordable housing.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's going to be interesting and maybe difficult.
Yeah, I think it'll be really hard.
I don't think
Some
we'll
of
have
the- I
that
think some
many
of the
projects,
Yeah.
personally. I think we'll have a few,
Couple, maybe.
I don't know. I just don't see the engagement from the private development community that they even recognize this is out there or how they might, I mean, we've had so much trouble such a difficult time getting Frank Saab to even understand how it impacts affordable housing. That's the hardest thing we've tried to convey to him. His intentions are golden, but he doesn't quite get that connection.
How what impacts affordable housing? How what does?
How going after those dollars needs to have an impact on affordable housing, that there needs to be, the affordable housing needs to get something in exchange for those dollars. Just building houses, getting access to a piece of ground and building houses isn't quite enough for it to live up to the expectation of the other applications we get.
Again, I come back to TIF financing.
Yeah.
If it's going to open up a whole piece of property, that seems like the appropriate avenue to be pursuing in the first
Right.
place. But if we're dealing with an individual, like couple lots, there's always part which is infrastructure, and you can help underwrite that, so to speak.
Nicholas Ward, Tennis to Homeowners. With that, let's say the amount being requested is $400,000. The way I've understood it is that there needs to be then reflected a benefit to affordable housing showing a comparable amount of money, so the same or more in that case.
Right.
And so a decrease in, if it's lots being sold outright, decrease in those lots that would equal that amount, which under TIF, I don't know that would get opened up, but there might not be the same exchange for what would benefit affordable.
It'll be a different formula, a different body and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's the way I understood it. It's not that someone will get that infrastructure money and then just open it up and maybe there's one unit of affordable housing, but it would have to be, that's our distinction, our recommendation, but we would want that to show at least that value reflected
I'm
back.
trying to think a little if the city and the county are so interested in this, let's have them put some money forward, not just taxpayer money, but the money that comes from those taxes and allocate it to infrastructure.
Yeah, I was I had the opportunity to be in Kerrville, Texas last week. And actually was at a dinner and got to sit with the mayor. And they had a project where a developer had purchased about 110 acres. And they worked with the city and they developed a TIF district, and it was like a 30% TIF. So it went from ag value to residential value. And the developer guaranteed that all the houses would sell under a certain price point. And they were just trying to create affordable housing stock because they have such a shortage. And they got it done. They were going to do 400 homes in about 18 months.
Wow.
They weren't permanently affordable, but they were housing stock that was going to be under the 300,000. It was either 280 or 300. And they're small, 2 and 3 bedroom.
Great house.
Starter homes, but they were going to put them on the ground in 18 months. And that's how they essentially funded the infrastructure. It was, and the agreement with them was to provide those houses under that price point.
And that's
So it
what,
was interesting, I was like, wow, that's cool.
that's what attracts a developer who can do
Right.
a larger scale, because,
Yeah.
this hurts all the taxpayers with the money that keeps coming out, but it's not enough to really, what have we done? How many houses over the last 5 years? How many apartments?
Yeah.
It's not that huge a sum of money.
Right. Well, ultimately, we need to start thinking more creatively about those things and how we do that. But
3 months.
for the next group, probably. All right. Anything else? I promised to get out of here before 1, so.
I thought I heard 1:15.
Yeah, well, I'm resigning if it's 1:15. Okay, anything else on the NOFO, that advice to provide to Leah? You'll do a new draft, it'll come out. It'll be on our agenda for next month.
Nicholas, we're attending someone, so we can also just follow up and send things by email to Leah, right?
Yes, certainly,
Perfect.
certainly. Okay. Item number 3 on the agenda is appoint member to serve on the Home Art Proposal Review Committee. Are we actually going to do that? Is that going to occur in the next 2 months, or
Oh. Oh, gosh.
or does that evaporate in 2 months as well?
Oh, my goodness. This is Leah Roseland, Affordable Housing Administrator. That's a very good point. Yeah, we might want to table that for the next iteration of the AHAB.
Do
But
they
I'll leave.
need someone soon, or is it?
No,
Okay.
that the work won't be done until,
Fall?
after August.
Okay, so we're going to table that. Leah's going to find out a little bit more about
Yeah,
that.
sorry, I didn't
And it
think-
might be back next month for us to look at, or if we need to appoint someone.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to see, is there a quick, Section D on the agenda, quick updates and new business. So we're going to receive a report or a summary of the City of Lawrence Boards and Commissions restructuring. So are you going to do that report?
Yeah,
Basically?
this is Leah Roseland. I'll summarize what the commission has decided last week at their meeting. So essentially, in summary, and how it will impact the AHAB is that the AHAB will essentially be dissolved in August, and then a new iteration of the AHAB will be appointed. Starting, the first meeting will be in September 2024. The current AHAB members, all current terms will expire in August. The next iteration of the AHAB will have a 7-member board, and all current members who are interested in serving on the next iteration of the AHAB are welcome and encouraged to apply. Appointments will be determined by the City Commission. The next iteration of the AHAB, as I mentioned, the City Commission is looking at it as a new board, and so the first order of business for the new AHAB will be to adopt a new meeting time and schedule, look at new bylaws that might need to be adopted, and set the goals and strategies for the work of the AHAB.
And so I have a question about this, which is each of us represents a specific constituency. And so the constituents who are here, that number is going to be reduced substantially. I think there are reasons why all of us are here.
My,
That's a statement you said, not a.
my,
And there was a pending.
Don't look at me, don't look at me.
There was a hanging.
yes, my understanding, and this has not been articulated explicitly, but my understanding is that one of the goals and what has happened is uniformity across all boards, and so all boards will be 7-member general sort of members at large seats.
And my looking at this seemed to indicate that Historical Resources Commission as well as Affordable Housing is are grouped into one, the strong neighborhood or strong, I think that was what it was, strong neighborhoods.
That was a little bit confusing how they listed it. So the AHAB and the Historic Resources will remain 2 separate boards. It's just that we both fall under the outcome area in the city strategic plan of strong and welcoming neighborhoods.
And I may be speaking a little out of turn, but I think their goal was to get one board for every
Outcome.
outcome in the strategic plan, and they weren't quite able to get there. So we're just grouped with 2 boards under.
Okay.
That's my basic understanding.
So, Mark Bueller, Chamber of Commerce, I guess. Are we waiting on an indication of what boxes they want to fill, or are they just going to be at large and off we go? That's your feeling? Okay.
Yeah, my understanding is that they'll be all at-large seats, and currently the mayor nominates and appoints all members, and in the next iteration of boards, all city commissioners will have the opportunity to recommend, and the whole city commission will need to vote on the appointments as currently happens. But yeah, there hasn't been any indication of what they're looking for, how they'll prioritize what members, and that's all city commission.
Karen Willie, County Commissioner. So is the intention that all of us should reapply? I mean, I guess, because one of the issues with AHAB has always been that we have our affordable housing nonprofits at the table, which was very helpful because they also know the drill, they know that field really well, but it's also been a problem because half the board recuses itself in order to look at the application. So I assume that's one of the things they want to address. It'd be really nice if they gave us some indication of what they want to see there, because they'll need, presumably they'll look for some amount of continuity, but I imagine that's something that they're looking to fix in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I can, I'll see if they have any consensus right now in direction that they'd like to move. For those of you who were around a couple years ago, the AHAB did make a recommendation to the city commission to revisit the membership structure. And the city commission tabled that item because they were going to start the board and commission, whatever they called it, revamp. So I think this was like a way of solving that for them, of just being all general members at large. But I will see if they have any clarity on who they'd like to see. But in my perspective, I'd encourage all of you who are interested in continuing to serve to apply, and they'll suss that out.
Yeah. Can you send this group the link, or is that like a Cora?
Yeah, I'm happy to, yeah.
Okay. And, I think to some extent, from a historical perspective, when this board started, there was not a board, there was not a trust fund. I think they put a lot of people, specific people at the table to try to get this up and going. Now that we're, 7 years into it, maybe the need, for all of those seats is a little less than it was. But certainly been extremely valuable in getting us to the point we are.
Perhaps I'm going to talk briefly about Lawrence Board of Realtors' position on this, which is that we were approached to help fund the report, and part of that request for funding indicated also, we will give you a seat at the table. And I, of course, will go back to my people and say, this is going away, and I don't expect I'm going to have a lot of people really happy about that. There was no question in that.
Sounded pretty definitive.
Yeah.
This is Sarah Waters. Just based on what you verbally said, Leah, about a September meeting of the new board, and then looking at the timeline in the SNOFO, I don't see anything realistic about the timeline in the SNOFO, about presentations at the October meeting. And so I would strongly encourage, something needs to give here. And I think it's the timeline of the SNOFO, because I think it does the applicants a disservice to put this out and have them put all their time behind it, and then have this tabled into the new year, or have to be pushed forward. And it is what it is at this point, but I know I've been on this board long enough with some others to know that we've done the selection at different times. It has different implications. But again, there's nothing realistic about the timeline in the SNOFO. And so I just wanted to say that for the record, and strongly encourage that this gets changed.
Is that something you'd be comfortable with, like me and Leah talking to the city manager and seeing what they say about that?
Have at it.
Well, and we can bring it, we'd do that before the next meeting so we can have a revised timeline. But if we could do that,
Please.
make sure that they may have a reason they're pushing it forward. I don't know.
Well, and I understand there may be a reason to push it forward. I also think the education of new members is critical.
Yeah.
And assuming that the 7 new members will not all be returning members. I'm just saying that is likely. And I think this group has gone back and forth from many iterations of this.
Right.
And so I think it does a disservice to the applicants to have a new board sitting there watching presentations, maybe in meeting 2.
Right.
And then needing to score, because scoring is very challenging on these. We all know that from past history of it.
Right.
And so I think it has to change in some capacity. Otherwise, I would think we won't even get the breadth of applications. Because why would a new developer maybe throw in now, other than thinking they've got a new board? I don't know. It's just an interesting, especially this infrastructure pot is very different.
Yeah.
It's all very different, and I just think, it will be. I don't see meeting 2 of this board being ready to listen to those presentations at the depth they'll need to listen to in order to score at the depth they'll need to in order to present recommendations to the commission at some point. And our recommendations from very seasoned people have been questioned over the years by the commission, or the commissioners, and that is certainly their right. It should be, exactly. But I think it does a disservice to new board members to have that happen to them 2 to 3 meetings in as well, and questioning their knowledge base, their understanding. So yes, I think whatever engagement with the city manager, whoever it is, should happen in order to get this timeline to be a little bit more realistic, in order to run a fair, equitable, and process with integrity.
This is Leah Roseland. I guess from my perspective, and I absolutely understand what you're saying, Sarah. And we had about half the board turnover this year. And so at the last NOFO review, we had about half new members making recommendations, reviewing the NOFO and making recommendations. And so I would be surprised if it was a whole new board. But I guess I'm wondering what the difference then might be, because that's been the case.
I'll speak, I'm in my sophomore year. And I kind of think I'm starting to figure out that I kind of think I know what I'm doing. And I say that with respect to the process, that I'm not a process guy. Let's go do something right now. With respect to the process and then the understanding And then, quite frankly, the interface with the community. You know, people still say to me, I thought we spent tax money to create affordable housing. And they mean affordable housing, not like we mean it, okay? That's part of our problem with private developers, is we're not speaking the same language.
Right.
So my point is, I'm a sophomore, and there's some seniors here, and I mean, you get it, and a whole bunch of freshmen. So, yeah, this will be very interesting, but she is dead right. This is no way unfair, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining as a board member.
Yeah.
I'm saying to the people that spend hours and dollars on these applications to step in here and see people they don't know half the glossary.
Yeah.
So,
As
Yeah.
a true freshman, I'll definitely concur. In fact, I mean, just as a, naive person who is, uninformed, uneducated on all this, I view it from a totally different perspective and come at it and question a lot of the things that are in it.
sure.
And
We
there are
should.
new people who are on the, whatever it is, they may have a new process.
Right.
So, I mean, practically speaking, maybe the real question is, do we want to push something through that handcuffs a later board, and would that even handcuff them?
And I'll just speak specifically to your point, Leah, because it's a good one, but you had a seasoned chair sitting in that seat right there
Yeah.
that helped shepherd this.
Yep.
In some other seasoned members, Christina being one, I've been on the board for quite some time, that were just, again, able to help as much as possible. And so perhaps that will be the representation of the new board. But I think it's odd to put it out there now, not knowing what the representation is. And that was why I felt it was necessary to bring that up.
Thank you.
Karen
Go ahead,
Willie,
Karen.
County Commissioner. I don't have a dog in that fight, however the city wants to move forward with it, but there are a couple of options that I see that might get to that point that we could maybe offer to the city for their thoughts. One is we can make the NOFO, make it due sooner, which I think is really unfair to partners. We could make this board sunset a little bit later so that this board still looks at those applications in October. Or it could be for one iteration that the city commission monitors that process and serves as the AHAB board for that particular NOFO round. Those are just some thoughts.
I think even in addition to that, if we do get it out there, one thing is I hate to not get it out there. The next board could ultimately recognize they're not ready
Situation.
to recognize the situation and delay it, at their first meeting in September. I don't know. It's kind of late, though, in the process, because you got people already working on it.
Nicholas Ward, tenants to homeowners. Leah, what do you think is it a realistic compromise that this board would continue through the process? Or is that's exactly what's happening and that's when it's happening?
This is Leah Roseland. I would be surprised if they allowed this AHAB to sunset or dissolve later, because one of the main goals is that there will be alignment across all boards so that new members are being onboarded at the same time. There's going to be a larger orientation that all board members of all the boards will attend together. So that would put the AHAB on a different schedule, and yeah.
Every committee is having the same discussion, right?
Right.
That they have important work moving forward.
It's a very logical idea.
I don't know. I think if maybe the right thing to do is, well, we'll talk to whoever we need to talk to, and when the next draft comes out, we'll have if the timeline needs to be modified based on our conversations, it'll come out as modified. And if they want to stick with it, then that's what will be reflected, and we can act on that. We don't have to take their recommendation necessarily. We can buck the system, but so we'll definitely look into that. I think it's a good point.
I'd be interested to know if they plan on having like a transitioning process where like new board meets old board I mean, it could potentially inform at least the NOFO or give very, very short slide. The next.
At least you got 3 minutes in public comment.
Yeah, yeah.
Collectively.
Stream it through.
Yeah, they're gonna sit them down in here with those things that hold your eyes open and make them watch our last 3 meetings. Is what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
RNG.
Well,
Exactly.
this is Leah Roseland, the other, and I apologize, I was looking at my computer because the other aspect that is in my mind is how trust funds and local city support feeds into KHRC LIHTC applications. And so I was checking their timeline. Those applications are due in January. So it benefits those applicants to know where their local support stands in those applications. They'll score additional points. So that's just something else for this board and I guess the city commission to think about. If this process gets delayed, how that would impact LIHTC applications.
But it could potentially get delayed another month or whatever.
Right.
Right? I don't know if that's enough or makes a difference, but, okay. Anything else on that quick update?
Probably should have been an agenda item.
Okay. Received some information to follow up on from a request in April 2024 meeting about universal design. Any comments on that? Okay. Then we have section E of the agenda, committee updates. We have the land development code. Any updates from you, Bill?
Well, I think what I wrote back in the March meeting is still germane. I would say that they did get a skeletal version of the administrative procedures out, which they call Module 3, contract calls Module 3. You know, I encourage you, if you can't go to sleep, to look back at the comments that I made in March, because I still think they're relevant, and I don't see the people who are shepherding this process are moving it very, very quickly. Okay, I mean, it is going to the Planning Commission, I think, twice this month.
Aren't there public hearings, additional public hearings out there for people to go to and ask questions?
There are.
5 or 6?
There are open houses this week.
Okay, that would call it.
Wednesday evening, I know, is at the fire station on Stewart.
Right.
And then Thursday morning at the Union Depot. I think they have one at Holcomb Park. I mean, there are 4 or 5. They're all happening this week. I guess that's probably the most germane point. Thanks for bringing it up. Yes, and I encourage you all to go and have your list of questions and concerns ready. But the process is moving very quickly. And it's a process that the community will live with for at least 15 years, and probably longer. So that's my update.
Okay.
I've been through 3 of them, so.
All right. Housing Justice Work Group update, Christina?
Yeah, we had our meeting back in, well, I'm happy to consolidate some of the groups because there's a lived experience creation work group and then there's the housing justice work group. The housing justice work group will meet quarterly and we have not decided on our next meeting. There's a live doodle pull out and you know how those go, but hopefully we'll get one that's on calendar. So that at this point what we're doing is reviewing policies, the city's policy, Lawrence Douglas County Public Health Policy, just kind of trying to get an understanding of compensation, because I think we're really wanting to have those with lived experience, lived expertise in some of these spaces that we're talking about connecting with to a calendar date. So it's been a lot of review, a lot of good wholehearted, like do homework at your own discretion, but yet to be a calendar date where we all can connect. Hopefully with the also with the new group that we have or may not have, there'll be some investment or some interest to put forth time in those smaller groups as well. So more conversations to be had.
All right. All right. On the item F on the calendar, so we have Affordable Housing Month proclamation tomorrow. I think Leah, Nicholas, and myself are going to present, I guess, or say a little something. Welcome to come and support us.
I am with you. You're on.
Okay, yeah.
What day is that?
It's tomorrow. Tomorrow evening at the commission meeting. There's a affordable housing event at the public library, which I think is Limestone School, and tenants to homeowners. It was in the paper on Sunday, I think, Saturday or Sunday. Kind of a neat little deal.
And it's
So,
the 23rd?
There are two, actually.
Yes. Oh, there's two?
Yeah, one is TTH and one is the city.
Oh, I thought it was the same thing.
Yeah, we tried.
Separate things, we tried to combine them. They had organically developed on their own independently. And so then we had a conversation, oh my gosh. The reason that we ended up not combining them in a conversation with the director at Limestone Community School was that oftentimes when you have, like the students there are doing a lot of really great research. They're talking with professionals all over the US about different things and are going to be presenting on all that. And I worked with them to develop a list of 7 kind of areas of intrigue or questions that they would investigate and be presenting on in this speed dating style event, which I think will be really fun. But if we have a bunch of housing professionals in the room that are in their like 40s and 50s and 60s, adults are naturally gonna defer to the adults and ask versus paying attention to the students. So we didn't want to override their the work that they're doing and bypass them and kind of this whole thing where they would kind of get patted on the head and be like, isn't that great? Because I think they are doing some pretty interesting things, and so that kept them separate versus having all the paid professionals in the room and the students competing for attention in that way. And also the event is, we jam-packed it, so in that, hour and a half of time, it's kind of every minute is accounted for in the process of having these 7 tables. So that's the speed dating event. It'd be pretty fun if you can make it. I think it'll be, it's like hands off, so we'll see what they do, right? I'm just helping to organize
So
a little bit.
the May 23 event is your event, is tenants to homeowners event.
Nope, the 16th is the Limestone and Tennis to Homeowners event. Thursday, the 23rd is the city with a number of other agencies, is that correct?
Okay.
Being there to present and ask questions.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I totally messed that up. So, okay, so just to recap, May 16th is the Limestone tenants to homeowners. And then May 23rd is a tenants to homeowners city-sponsored affordable housing event.
Yeah, so on the
Okay.
May 23rd, it will be essentially like an info fair. So we'll have the past Affordable Housing Trust Fund recipients having tables, and the community can come and get, learn about this project.
The library.
That will also be at the library.
The same night as their summer reading kickoff
Oh, is it? Fun.
event.
Oh, cool. Well, hopefully we'll have some more folks come in then. We'll have a little activity station for kiddos. I think like maybe making bird houses or something. And we'll have a little snackies. So I actually see that as a benefit.
Okay.
I have a procedural question. Karen Willie. So in terms of if we may have a quorum of this body at any of these, just announcing it in the calendar there, or the fact that it's been talked about in this meeting is sufficient to make that?
Oh, this is Leah Roseland. Thank you for mentioning that. I will need to double check with the city attorney's office for how we'll handle that at events.
Just can't talk about affordable housing.
Right, at an affordable housing event.
Just limits you just a little bit.
Right.
And I think the fact that it's all open to the public, as long as we announce that there may be a
There-
quorum
there may be a
that we're
quorum, that's probably right.
checking all the boxes.
Okay, okay.
To ask.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Okay. got the trust fund NOFO thing, July 8, 2024 mid-year report. Is July 8th our next meeting?
The June 10th will be the next
Or
meeting.
June 10th, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when we'll approve the NOFO, when you all will approve the NOFO. And then July, that is the only business item. And I don't know if you all want to discuss this now, if you want to keep that meeting in July or cancel it, and have the new board review those mid-year reports, and then maybe want to have some discussion today or at a future meeting regarding the August meeting where there will not be any business items.
Yeah.
Can we have a last day of school party?
We're checking.
So as normal, I was not listening. Are we likely to not have an August meeting or a July meeting?
Maybe both.
Okay.
I think we'll decide probably, I mean, think about that. If there's no business, I'm not sure there's a reason to meet in July or August.
Okay.
I think we need to meet in June to get the NOFO out. Short of that, I don't think there's a lot to do between now and August 31st.
So,
So, go ahead.
well, I just trying to be as clear as I can be. So Leah, will you let us know what the upshot of your conversations are with the city administration, certainly with respect to what Sarah was talking about and the timeline for the NOFO? You'll let us know when.
I will,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I'll probably, unless you all would like it sooner or need it sooner, I was planning on giving that update at the June meeting.
Don't look at me. I mean,
Well, I'm assuming we would, if we had those conversations, we would modify
If it
the
needs.
timeline in the
Timeline.
NOFO if that's the recommendation from city
Yes.
administration.
okay.
Yeah.
And then,
So you'll get a week ahead of time.
okay.
Basically,
That's.
Right,
and then we'll discuss it at that meeting.
Okay, sure.
thank you.
All right. See, nothing else. Is there any new business that anybody would like to bring up? Extend the meeting to 1:15.
I'm good, thanks, Monty.
Okay. Okay. All right, then we're adjourned until next month. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Might have been our fastest meeting ever.
Wow, I know.